For as long as I can remember, my dad has been working on a website in his spare time. I never really knew what it was all about, but I knew he was passionate about it and that he's helped people all over the world. Please join me as I find out how it all began.
Hi, I'm Eric Stone, and I'm an amateur researcher, genealogist, and writer. And I've created the ssarkansan.com website to talk about our family history and the loss of Bernard Connors in World War II. I started this project about 15 years ago when we were at a Thanksgiving dinner at my wife's grandmother's house, sitting around the table looking at pictures of different family members, and we came across Bernard's photograph in a frame, and I asked who he was. They told me and said he was lost in World War II, but nobody really knew the circumstances of that. So we didn't find a lot of information initially, and then a couple of years later, unfortunately, my wife's grandmother passed away, and we went down to help clean out her house. During that process, my sister-in-law found a newspaper clipping when Bernard was lost. I always referred to it as finding the Rosetta Stone. It had all kinds of great details and clues for me to start my research. Bernard was the chief mate of a freighter called the SS Arkansan of the American Hawaiian Line, and they were coming back from the Middle East at the time and had stopped in Trinidad, and they actually had one leg of their trip left. They were headed to New Orleans, and unfortunately they were sunk first night out by the German U-boat U-126. So the U-boat spotted the Arkansan not directly, but by an aircraft that was escorting her out of Trinidad. It was flying in circles around the Arkansan. When they first saw the aircraft, the U-boat immediately dived, because aircraft were very dangerous to the U-boats. Then when they noticed it kept circling through their periscope, they surfaced to see what it was circling around, and finally saw a bit of smoke from the smokestack of the Arkansan. So the Germans kept an eye on the Arkansan. Eventually the aircraft, this particular type, couldn't fly at night under instrumentation, had to leave, so the Arkansan was on its own. After the aircraft left, the U-boat surfaced, and then using its superior speed, got ahead of the Arkansan, but just out of sight. And then basically a lot of these attacks is a classic night surface attack for a German U-boat. They got ahead of the Arkansan, they were surfaced, and basically it was an ambush. They just waited until the Arkansan came to them. The Arkansan actually came very close. The U-boat was only about 1.5 lengths of the ship away, incredibly close. This particular U-boat had torpedo tubes, 4 on the front, 2 in the stern, and they fired both torpedoes out of the stern tubes, and the run time was less than 30 seconds between launch and the time of impact. The first torpedo impacted just below the bridge, and also of course below the waterline. The second torpedo impacted further back on the ship, right around where the superstructure of the deckhouse ended. German torpedoes packed about 617 pounds of explosives, and in a typical freighter, this would punch a hole about 25 or 30 feet in diameter into the side of the ship. Exactly what happened to Bernard is still a bit of a mystery. None of the reports specifically say. There's a number of different stories. Some of the family had heard that he had made it to the lifeboat, but then had to go back. A nephew thought he had gone back for some papers. A niece thought he had gone back for a wedding gift for his fiancée. Over my years of research, I've been able to find a lot of great details about the Arkansan, including plans of the ship. And those plans actually showed different cabins on the ship. I was reviewing those actually one time with a man named Rodman Dickey, who was actually an officer on the Arkansan for the voyage before. I'd met him through a great gentleman named George Duffy at a merchant marine luncheon. And Rodman pointed out that the chief mate's cabin was on the main deck and the forward port quarter of the ship, which happened to be the cabin immediately above where the first torpedo hit. The attack occurred about 8:30 at night. Based on the shifts that the merchant marines worked, there's 3 8-hour shifts. Despite the theories of him reaching the lifeboat, my working theory is he was probably in the cabin when that first torpedo hit. His shift was over, he probably had some dinner, and then retired to his cabin to perhaps write a letter to his fiancée or take care of other business. So this combines my longtime interest in history, tying that to our own family story. It's a great feeling to be able to explain to somebody what happened and kind of educate them a little bit on what their relative went through, in some cases what their final moments were like.